Thank you very much for having me here today. Michael, thank you for that welcome to your country. That was truly amazing for many reasons, but also because it was humorous and it was a quiz all woven into one just to keep us on our feet. So thank you very much for that. Already some really fantastic presentations and from the heart presentations. And I'm just feeling a bit nervous about that because I, of course, am speaking from the heart on this topic, but it's about national policy. So it sort of sounds like a dry topic, but I hope it will be inspiring for all of you. Sally, thank you very much for being here today and representing the Environment Minister, and likewise Peter and Cam for those opening remarks. Now I'm just going to test that I can work my way through the slides. I'll wait till I get to my first slide. So look, to start with, thank you everyone for coming together today and really for this opportunity to collectively have discussions over the next couple of days about this topic, which is so close to our hearts, and that is preventing extinctions and supporting the recovery of our threatened plants and animals. As all of our speakers have said today, everyone here in this room is striving to make a positive difference to the survival of our species, whether that be through accelerating on-ground action, delivering research and innovations, through activism or through raising awareness. And of course, governments have a very critical role to play in stepping up to this challenge. But the scale of the task means that success really relies on collective action, and that means from everyone here in this room, of course, and also far beyond this room. So I'm going to be talking today about the Australian Government's role in coordinating national efforts to conserve and protect our native plants and animals. Of course, as the Commonwealth, we have many levers at our disposal. Sally's spoken about some of those. I'm not going to be covering off on all of those. They also include, of course, our national environment legislation, for which important reforms are underway. I'm going to be focusing today on national policy, and it's the recovery work being guided by the Australian Government's Threatened Species Action Plan, including the commitment to no new extinctions. So let me test this. Oh, yay. So just quickly, for those of you who are not familiar with my role as Threatened Species Commissioner, is to bring a national focus to conservation efforts and to help facilitate the recovery of our threatened plants and animals. And I work collaboratively across governments and across many different stakeholders and partners, many of whom are in the room today, but also much more broadly. And a really important part of the role of my office is implementing the Australian Government's Threatened Species Action Plan. It's a 10-year action plan. It includes 4 high-level and ambitious targets, and it's really high-level objectives and a range of targets, which are it's up there on the screen, and it runs over 10 years. We have a couple of reporting periods during that time. We have what I'd call a light touch report, which is due later this year, and then a more fulsome review and report in 2027. So stay tuned for that. You don't need to read all of the detail on this slide. In fact, on most of my slides, you don't need to read all of the detail. It's just there for a pretty backdrop. The action plan represents a really strategic approach to achieving the no new extinctions targets and the other objectives in the plan. Its ambitious objectives are intended to drive change through identifying national priorities and directing on-ground efforts, and it complements our regulation and supports collaboration and engagement. The slide here captures the key elements of the action plan on a single page. For today's presentation, I'm just going to touch really briefly on a couple of those elements: the commitment to prevent new extinctions, landscape scale efforts, and also the importance of celebrating our successes. Okay, so the Australian Government's commitment to no new extinctions is the first time such an ambitious target has been set for protecting our plants and animals. The commitment to no new extinctions has certainly created debate, but as Sally said, it is a really important line in the sand, and it has also certainly generated action. Our wildlife is integral to our cultural and natural heritage. It's part of our natural identity. And as awareness increases on the value of nature to our economy, to our health and to our well-being, so does the community expectation that it's protected. So, of course, this isn't just in Australia, and we have international guests here today as well. The objective in the Threatened Species Action Plan, the sister objectives in Australia's Strategy to Nature, help position Australia internationally for the global commitment to halt species extinction under the UN's Global Biodiversity Framework. Of course, extinction, the loss of the last individual of a species, is generally after a very lengthy period. Years and decades of decline across a species range, from almost always human-induced pressures. Preventing extinction involves making decisions earlier to prevent decline and supporting recovery efforts well before species become critically endangered. There are many intervention points along this road, and the idea with the Threatened Species Action Plan is that it is guiding work along that spectrum. This includes 20 priority places under the action plan for landscape scale action, with several high priority threats such as gamblergrass, myrtle rust, feral cats and others, which are intended to benefit multiple species and ecological communities found in those landscapes and to support healthy functioning ecosystems. Projects are underway over the last couple of years all around the country. With this in mind, I'm just going to single out a couple here. Christmas Island is one in our Indian Ocean territories, where we're supporting island-wide work to eradicate feral cats, to control yellow crazy ants, and also applied science to look into the impact of invasive wolf snakes on the island. Across the Australian Alps, where there's over 85, I think, threatened species, and the alpine bogs and fens threatened ecological community, we're supporting, amongst other landscape scale actions, control of invasive species such as deer, horses and pigs. In Tasmanian waters, in our only truly marine priority place, we're investing in the protection of giant kelp forests through restoration activities along the east coast, and through management of invasive species sea urchins in that area. And across our northern savannas, we are supporting the strategic control and eradication of gamblergrass, a transformational weed across our northern savanna. All of these investments represent partnerships between First Nations peoples or custodians, with the exception of Christmas Island, of course, and many other land managers, in some cases parks agencies and community groups and scientists. But we are all well aware that even with considerable landscape scale interventions, there are some species that end up on that cliff edge, and we are, for the very first time, taking a really specific focus on interventions to prevent extinction events for species on the brink. Again, no need to delve into that slide in detail. We have developed a decision framework, which is what is pictured on the slide, that is guiding critical funding decisions and action for highly imperiled species. We now have interventions underway for many species across a range of taxonomic groups, fish, invertebrates, birds, reptiles, many plant species, and also frogs. And in the interests of time, I'm just going to showcase one species, and I'm pleased to see that the UTAS researchers who are the leads on this are in the room, so for you, Jamina. So this is Tasmania's red handfish. I'm also showcasing it because it is a very cool little creature. It's a tiny but stocky fish. They have these modified fins which they use to walk across the seabed. There are only about 100 remaining in the wild just near Hobart. They're threatened by climate change, leading to increased sea temperatures, but also invasive species and habitat destruction. Actions for this species over the last 12 to 18 months have included emergency salvage ahead of a predicted marine heatwave, and individuals have since been returned. And along with the NGO FAME, we are also supporting the first ever captive breeding program for red handfish. There's about 350 or so in captivity at the moment. And along with that, development of new methods to successfully release handfish into the wild and restoring their seagrass habitats. With each of these emergency interventions under the action plan, we're working to ensure that the relevant state and territory government is supportive and that the right partnerships are in place to help shore up the longer term prospects for those imperiled species. Okay, so a really important role of my office is raising awareness about our imperiled plants and animals. Community support and pressure both empowers and pressures governments and other actors to invest in and to take action to protect our threatened species. Community action, whether that be from Indigenous ranger groups through to citizen scientists, also of course makes vital on-ground contributions to species recovery and provides important opportunities for people to connect with country and to connect with nature. And one key element of this is celebrating success. So it is very important that we take the time to focus on solutions, as Peter has been speaking about, and to celebrate wins, but without denying the challenges that our biodiversity is facing. The evidence is very clear, and it is often not rocket science that when we focus our efforts, we can significantly shift recovery prospects for our threatened plants and animals, and there are a bunch of examples pictured here. Many of these, and these are species for which under the first threatened species strategy, recovery prospects were improved due to direct interventions guided by that strategy. Many of these species here fulfil important ecosystem functions. Many are culturally significant for First Nations peoples. Most of them are endemic, and for many of these species, the actions to recover them deliver co-benefits for wildlife using the same habitat. These are, each of them, and there are many more, are compelling examples of how strategic, collaborative and focused effort can make a real difference. Okay, so to wrap up, I've just touched this morning on some of the ways in which the Threatened Species Action Plan, our national policy document, is driving positive changes for our threatened plants and animals, including actions to guide imminent extinction events. And there are, of course, many significant efforts outside of and independent of the Australian government, which I'm looking forward to hearing more about and discussing more over the next couple of days. Are these efforts enough? Clearly they are not, and that's why we're here in this room. We need to be doing a lot more right now to tackle current threats to our wildlife. And at the same time, we need to be looking ahead to climate-driven changes across our land and seascapes, which I haven't touched on in this presentation. So interactive symposiums like this, they really galvanise us. They really help us to inform our research, our policy, our programs, so that we can focus efforts to where they're going to have the greatest impact. They help to strengthen the case for investment and the case for a step up in action. And last but not least, they make our collective efforts more powerful and strengthen partnerships. And this is the real beauty of an institution like the Australian Committee for IUCN. It's unique in bringing together different actors with different methods and different approaches, but with a shared public good, and that is to support the recovery of our most imperilled plants and animals. Thank you.